This is the It's Not So Late show with your host, Aaron Hanania, the voice of young America, interviewing celebrities, influencers, and exploring unique and interesting stories that you need to hear. And now, please welcome your host of the It's Not So Late show, Aaron Hanania.
We are back with Steve Bahls, who is the president of Augustana College in Rock Island, Illinois. President Bahls, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Hey, it's good to be with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Anytime. So my first question to you is, how did you get into becoming the president of a liberal arts college?
Well, that's a good question. At the time of the last presidential search, I was the dean of Capital University Law School. You know, I'm a lawyer. I had practiced law, I became a law professor, and then a law school dean. I was a dean at Capital University Law School in Columbus, Ohio. In those days, 19 years ago, the Lutheran affiliated institutions liked to look for presidents from sister schools. So I was a law school dean at a sister school of Augustana College and found myself here in Rock Island, Illinois.
So how does your background in law help you with what you do nowadays as being a
Well, yeah, that's a good question. You know, a law degree is, in a sense, really an extension of a philosophy degree. So if you think about it, law is based on jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is based on philosophy. So certainly my law degree helped me understand the liberal arts, but a law degree also gives you the ability to make an argument, to persuade people to go along with some of the ideas you have, and to engage in deep critical thinking. And that's what's required of a president.
Interesting. What branch of law were you in when you were a professor?
Well, that's a good question. I taught in several areas. I taught employment law, I taught corporate law, and I taught agricultural law.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So, what does your average day look like nowadays as president? Like, what do you do behind the scenes when you're not giving speeches or walking around campus and meeting with, advisors and students?
Well, I like to spend at least an hour every day walking around campus, meeting students, talking to faculty members and employees. Going over, you've probably seen me at the brew by the slough to receive a cup of coffee. But much of the day is spent in meetings. So today, I think I met with 5 students. Several of them had questions about going to law school. Worked with a student on some visa problems. A student came to me with a good idea with respect to bicycle storage. So just a lot of meetings. Likewise, I serve on several area boards. So today I was conversing with one of the boards that I was on, the chief executive officer and other board members.
Wow. So over 19 years of being a president, what would you say has changed the most given, changes in technology, society, economy, and things of that nature?
Well, I think that the biggest change in my 19 years has been the composition of the student body. So we've moved from a student body made up of millennials to a student body made up of Generation Z. So most of my presidency has been meeting the needs of millennial students, but I'm now learning a lot about Generation Z, which is impressive also. I think the greatest change on campus, if you were to walk through campus, would be the increasing diversity at Augustana College. When I became president, I could greet the international students, the new international students, and I did by sitting around our dining room table. I could greet the new students of color by having a reception in my living room. Now, international students and students of color account for 36% of the student body at Augustana.
Wow. So you'd have to increase your dining room just a little bit to fit them all.
Yes, I think I'd need to build 6 new dining rooms
Oh my.
at least.
So, we went through a pandemic. So how did that change what you do? And, what was your driving force to get through that?
Well, the pandemic probably was the most difficult part of my presidency. There was no playbook by which to operate. You may remember, Aaron, that at the time of the pandemic, I announced that if we just increased spring break by a couple of weeks, we'd be okay. I was wrong there. And then I said, well, we'll just hold off and go remote through the end of the semester, and we'll be fine in the fall. I was wrong there. So I'm making no more predictions about the pandemic. But, these are precious years for our students. And our goal was to operate responsibly with COVID, not be too fearful, but operate very cautiously. And we wanted to provide the students with the best possible experience in these pandemic times. I must say that our students helped us get through COVID. They masked, they got vaccinated, they kept their social distance, they operated in their pods. Very proud that Augustana was able to remain open longer than most schools because of the caution of our students, faculty, and staff.
Yeah, that's really something, trying to limit interaction. So, what was your favorite thing or event that Augustana did, that's virtual that you attended?
Oh, well, certainly the commencements were my favorite event. I mean, you would think a commencement would be a pretty dull event if it were a virtual. And of course, we couldn't see the reactions of the audience. But I could tell from the emails afterwards that students were, in fact, in their living rooms. This was commencement of 2020. We sent them a party kit to celebrate a commencement, and they really enjoyed it. Likewise, we celebrated the end of our $130 million capital campaign during the COVID. It was on New Year's Eve of 2020. Again, we sent every donor a party kit. We had a New Year's Eve presentation, and it was a lot of fun.
Man, I'm actually going to change the question and ask the same one. So now that everything's back to normal, what's your favorite on-campus event? Is it still the commencement, or do you have another event that you kind of tuck away in your pocket as a second hidden favorite?
Oh, well, I'll tell you about the two favorites. So certainly commencement is my favorite. It is such a festive time. We're very lucky this year to have Senator Durbin from the state of Illinois to be our commencement speaker. I think I've asked Senator Durbin probably 10 times to be commencement speaker. And this time I said, Senator, this is my last year. You got to make it happen for me. And he was kind enough to do so. I think the second favorite events would be the events around Christmas, whether it be the lighting of the Christmas tree, going to Andover with the students to remember the founding of the college, Christmas at Augustana, our music extravaganza, lessons and carols, our religious service in the chapel. This really is a great place at Christmas.
That's so fun. And speaking of being tied together, I've read the news recently that former President Thomas Treadway just passed away. So did you know him really personally? What was your relationship like? And what words do you have about that?
Well, I did, and it certainly was a sad day at Augustana College. Former President Tom Treadway, which most of our students know because the library was named in his honor, was president for 28 years at Augustana College. Prior to that time, he was dean of the college and a professor. So he was beloved by students, beloved by alums. Dr. Treadway was very steadfast in promoting the liberal arts and believing that Augustana should be and could be and was a national liberal arts college. He invested very heavily in faculty. Student faculty ratio was about 18-1 when he started, and he reduced it to a 13-1. He built just a number of great buildings, so he is very well remembered. You asked about the relationship that I had with him. Of course, when I became a president, I met with him very frequently. We met once a month to compare notes and for me to get guidance from him and his experience on some of the difficult issues facing Augustana College.
Wow. And then my very similar questions, how does that transition work when you're changing presidencies in a college? What goes into that so it is a smooth transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I might talk about the transition with our new president, Dr. Andrea Talentino. And Dr. Talentino and I visited today. We have about 6 or 7 topics that cross our administrations. You can guess what some of those topics are. The budget for next year is one, for example. Likewise, strategic plans and so on. So she and I talk periodically. We'll spend some time together in Chicago in the month of June. And then I actually will be available to her after I retire at any time to answer any questions that she might have. I expect she'll have more questions after she joins Augustana. I mean, it's kind of hard to ask questions in the hypothetical, you know what I mean.
100%. Speaking of budget, I heard too that you just had an alumni donate $40 million. So how is that going to affect current students, future students?
Well, it's a pretty incredible gift, and that was a gift by an alum who received some financial aid from Augustana himself. He went to Augustana and was a member of the class of 1975, and believes that Augustana gave him the helping hand he needs. So he is giving back. That $40 million will turn into $80 million because we need to raise another 40 to meet the match. And it's a very innovative gift. So for example, Aaron, if you would give $10,000, so when you win the lottery, he would match your $10,000 and you would have a $20,000 scholarship. Now this money has to cure, meaning that we can only spend the interest off of it. It must be invested forever. So it won't have much impact on current students at Augustana, but will have significant impact in a year with respect to particularly incoming students with need. He was a student who did well in high school, but felt that he needed a little extra boost, and Augustana gave it to him.
That's so cool. And how do you stay connected to all these, alumni? Because there's got to be hundreds, if not thousands. So what's your secret to staying connected to all of them?
Well, that's a good question. We have a alumni and development office, and I try to, as president, visit 10 or 15 cities a year where we have alums. There are pre-COVID cities that I would go to every year. You can guess, that I go to Chicago multiple times a year to meet with alums. There's a really great event, Winter in the Windy City, which is in January, and we have hundreds and hundreds of alums at that. But I go to Florida, the retirement areas, Arizona, New York. You can supply the list, Peoria, Springfield, to meet with alums, share the vision, and seek their financial support. This year, I believe that we will raise more than $20 million from our alumni to support the students of Augustana College.
Now, how many alumni would you say that you have that are connected in some way still to Augustana after graduating?
I would say the majority of alumni are connected to Augustana. So a pretty high percentage of our alumni give back to Augustana. In any given capital campaign, we could expect 30, 40% of the alumni to make a gift to the campaign. Reunions are very popular at times, particularly as you proceed through the years. So for example, we have the 50th reunion coming up, and I would estimate that 60, 70% of living alumni in the 50th reunion class would come back.
Wow, that's a really high ratio. And speaking, the retirement class, I want to talk about, retirement now that, you'll be able to kick back, relax a little bit. So what are some of your plans, once you can take the suit coat off and relax?
Well, thank you. I will be taking the suit coat off, and I want to work for about a third of the time. So I have a book that I am writing. You may know that I've written a book. It's an academic bestseller. An academic bestseller means, it sells several thousand copies. It's not like a Grissom, that sells hundreds of thousands. But it's on shared governance and our shared governance system here. So I will be writing the second edition of the book. I'll be serving on the board of the school from which I came, Capital University, because they gave me a break by appointing me as the youngest law school dean in the nation many, many years ago. And we'll continue to work on some law projects through the American Bar Association. But beyond that, Jane and I have bought a home in Missoula, Montana, which is where we raised our children. We have a small place here that we purchased in Davenport, because I'll continue to teach J-term at Augustana, probably spending about 2/3 of our time in the great state of Montana and 1/3 of our time here. We believe, that Montana has the most and best natural resources in the nation, but we believe the Midwest has the most and best human resources in the nation. I like
that. So when you're in Montana, what do you like to do? Do you like to go hike around, things like of that nature? Or do you like to just
Yes, yeah. So we have bought a house in a very historic area where Lewis and Clark went through the first transcontinental road. And from our home, we're surrounded by 1 million acres of wilderness.
Oh my goodness.
Missoula, Montana. So we don't have much of a backyard at our place, the smaller place, but within a 3-minute walk is 1 million acres of wilderness.
Wow, that's kind of scary though. 1 million acres. If you take the wrong turn one day, You get
We
home.
carry bear spray.
That's funny. So, in reflection of your career, who do you think were the three most influential people have been in your life, and how do they impact you?
Well, that is an easy question because I have their pictures right above my desk. So, in addition to my family, my father, who helped me understand the value of hard work, care, and compassion for people, I would name three other people. I would name Martin Burke, who was the dean of the University of Montana Law School, who taught me that you should dream big dreams, because when you dream big dreams and make a case for it, people will follow and help you finance those dreams. Josiah Blackmore was the president of Capital University. He taught me the value of deep care in people, getting to know people, having the highest sense of integrity and ethics. And Brenda Barnes, who was the CEO, first woman CEO of PepsiCo Corporation, an Augustana College graduate, chair of the board that hired me. And she taught me very much about the importance of loving the liberal arts, marketing the liberal arts, and making the liberal arts come true. Aaron, can I name a fourth?
Yes, please go for it.
Yeah, and that's Thornia Steele. Dean Steele was my associate dean at Capital University. He taught me about the importance of diversity, not only seeking diversity, but cherishing diversity, and how diversity could make an institution much better. He and I worked very hard to make a more diverse law school at Capital University, and we've had some success here.
Wow, that's really cool. So, going off that, what do you think you want to be remembered for, or what's a lesson you want people to learn from you and your presidency and your time in leadership positions?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, history will decide how I am remembered, but I hope I am remembered as someone who was fiercely pro student, who loved the students, who tried to meet the students where they are, who built programs for the students. But I also hope, Aaron, that I'll be remembered as someone that cherishes diversity. When I came to Augustana, there wasn't much diversity. I'll tell you, classrooms, you know this, discussions are much better when there is a diverse classroom, when we can talk about tough issues from different standpoints. So that's what I would hope, that I would be remembered for care of the students. They've been my favorite part at Augustana, as well as the increased diversity at our college and what that has meant.
That's cool. And something about my show I like to do is like help people get into different types of positions. So, where should someone start if they're interested in like higher leadership, whether it's in administration or education, or maybe being like a president of a college like yourself? What should people do?
Yeah, well, I think that if people want to get in higher positions of leadership, of course, it's a ladder. I got into it by being a law professor and then taking the next step up, associate dean, and college president. But I would say if you want to work on your leadership capabilities, take on assignments within the job place, volunteer to a political campaign, volunteer to be on a board of a nonprofit organization. Find a chance to exercise leadership in your employment area, in your community. If you're a lawyer, get active in the bar. If you're a doctor in the medical association, find those opportunities where you can go above and beyond. I really didn't have formal training in leadership skills. There's no formal training to be a college president. I mean, it's interesting. Look at all the training you have to be a K through 12 teacher. Zero training to be a law professor. Zero training to be a college president. But what you try to do is volunteer where you can, develop those leadership skills of working with people, developing those communication skills. So be active, look for leadership opportunities.
So going off of what you said, that there's no real, book to learn how to become a college president. What would you say was the most difficult thing to learn how to do that you found was a challenge in your career?
Oh, I do think that most college presidents will tell you that the most difficult things for college presidents are to deal with disappointments in people. And often those are personnel issues where individuals have not lived up to the standards of the college, individuals have stumbled, and that's frustrating. I'm one that doesn't like to judge anyone by their worst moment, right. But there are people that take advantage of the situation, and that's frustrating to me.
It's true. So before we go, do you have any last like bits of advice or something you want to say to anyone who might be watching?
Oh, I would say just a couple of things. My life has been guided by the prophet Micah, Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God? Justice is about being fair to people. Mercy is about not judging people by their worst moment. And walking humbly with your God is to recognize that we are called to serve. It's not about the leader, it's about the individuals the leader serves.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This is Steve Bahls, president of Augustana College. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate it.